I'm gonna do it in English. I hope that's the language that most people understand. Thank you all so much for being here. I think we should start out by giving just a big round of applause for all the organizers of the demo. Activists both inside and outside of the campus. Thank you, and thank you for being here. It's important. In recent years, we've seen a huge mobilization amongst people within the Danish deportation camps. In spite of the psychic torture that they're exposed to, in spite of the social and geographic isolation that they're living under, in spite of the surveillance of their everyday movements, in spite of the constant threat of imprisonment and deportation, in spite of the fact that they are robbed of the most basic rights, people in camps have organized, they have gone on hunger strikes, they have taken to the streets, and time again they have repeated what no one should ever have to say, that they are human beings with bodies that suffer from the violence of the state, human beings with sorrows and hopes for a better future, human beings with experiences and demands that are political. And those of us who don't live in camps ourselves have a responsibility to hear them. We have a responsibility to hear their voices and amplify them as much as we can. And to people who are here from the camps, I can only say, we see you, we hear you, we are with you. And we stand here today because we do not accept that the right to have rights should be determined by where you're born or by where your parents are born. We do not accept the border that the state imposes between those who are entitled to protection and a dignified life and those who are not. And that border is not only imposed in the asylum system. The border is also imposed when people who have lived in Denmark for several years are getting expulsion verdicts for something that a native Danish person would serve a minor prison sentence for. The border is imposed when Muslim women's freedom of religion is being criminalized. The border is drawn with the ghetto laws, in which a certain amount of non-Western residents activates double punishment, displacement, and forced institutionalization. The border is drawn in state laws and statistics, in which this category, non-Western, is getting more and more pervasive. And that is a very racist category. I believe that the deportation camps are connected to the racism that is spreading in the rest of society. It's a racism that might have replaced race with ethnicity and culture, but operates with the same old hierarchies. Western, so-called Western Christian Danish culture on the top and all others subordinated to it. It is also this racism that has fueled the idea of refugees and migrants as a threat to Europe and Denmark. So in my perspective, we also stand here today to refuse that racism. We stand here to let the people... Thank you. We stand here today to let the people in power know that we don't believe their stories of an immigrant problem, a refugee problem, or a Muslim problem. That we see through their propaganda and we see the real problems. We see the things that actually exist. The imperial wars and global inequality that makes people migrate. Fortress Europe that is trying to keep them out with violence and deathly politics. A Europe that refuses to acknowledge its colonial past and present. A capitalism that has strong interests in militant borders and needs racism to divert the very legitimate anger over rising inequality. It's quite simple. We stand here to demand justice for people who suffer from real problems. We stand here for freedom of movement, for the right to leave and the right to stay. And until the people in power actually hears us, we have to keep organizing, keep getting stronger and becoming more and more. And who knows, Maybe one day will be enough to tear down the walls of Ellebæk by ourselves, to shut down Sjælsmark, Kærshovedgård and Avnstrup, and to abolish the deportation system once and for all. Yes, love you too. So the fact that we're gathered here today, so many here today, that's a big step on the way. So thank you, and thank you to all activists who have come here from the camps. You're doing a huge job mobilizing all of us. We'll see you.